This is an emulator. This is for the Nokia N70. And we'll actually, this is what Google.mobi looks like on the N70. Will allow you to select a device. That way you're actually, when you run the test, you're actually behaving as that device. This is particularly important if you have a device-aware site. So we give you a test summary. This is Google. They actually did have 2 warnings and 1 failure, although they had 23 passes. Altogether, we run a collection of about 43 tests against the content.
So they don't have a search on the first page.
You're right,
That's
they don't.
Weird.
You don't. They actually have a click to search. You know, the first one here is the, and then that will take you to search. But Google.mobi actually is where they give you all of their mobile offerings. So they have mobile YouTube, calendaring, Gmail mobile. There's 2 different Google Mail. They have maps and what have you. So what they do with Google.mobi is they present all their mobile properties and then do that. So to give you an idea of what's happening here, and this is kind of, you know, this is interesting too. These are some of the tests that we run. It's been clipped off. But this was done to show you what exactly was going wrong with this particular site, to give you an idea of what's happening with ready.mobi. You'll see a couple things. This gray one means is Google.mobi doesn't have a Google sitemap. Now, if you think about that, isn't that ironic that Google doesn't have a Google sitemap? But if you then really think about it, actually Google doesn't need a Google sitemap. A Google sitemap is the way that you tell Google about what's on your site to be indexed. And Google doesn't need to index themselves because they're Google. It's where you go to do the searching. So that's actually probably a good thing that that's gray. This red one, however, specify image sizes. This is something that they didn't do. They failed here on line 2. There's another one here. And what they did is they had, interesting enough, you pointed out the search, it was on the search.gif that what they did was they gave it an alt name, but they didn't specify the height or the width of that attribute. And one of the things you should always do in mobile is specify the height and the width. And the reason why is the mobile browsers have different screens, or the physical layout, and the browsers need to be aware of that. So giving them height and width ratios are really, really important. So that shows you a little bit of the sorts of things that Ready does. If I was to give you a full demo, we would not only find the problems, we would also then take you to the design guides to tell you why it is and explain to you why it is that that attribute is really important in the effect that it would have.
All free.
All free. We do free, free, free. You're going to see a theme here. So one of the other things that we're doing is providing device detection. And device detection is something that we care very deeply about. Device detection, however, it's a very important and vital tool. However, it's also a potentially dangerous tool. And the reason why you actually brought up a good point when you said, if you have device detection, why do you need a special name? Why not just have the .com detect it and send you over the device? And the reason why is you're taking away choice from the user. And the user often wants to communicate their context. So to give you an example, I use a iPhone. Device Atlas, by the way, will detect it as an iPhone. However, a lot of sites will detect this as a Safari browser. And because it's a Safari browser, they say, aha, it's a PC. I'm going to give you the .com. Well, despite what Steve Jobs will tell you when he's up on stage, the iPhone is a great device. I love it, but it's not very good at looking at .com sites. In fact, it's really terrible. And he knows better. He has a pair of these. He's my age. You can't see them. And yeah, I can pinch and I can drag and stuff like that, but it's really hard. But you get to a .mobi on this, like Zagat.mobi or Spanair.mobi or Lufthansa.mobi. Wow, what a site they have. It's fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. But device detection is still important, even if I have a .mobi. And the reason why is, what kind of device am I talking to? And we've actually found that the community has rallied around 2 different usage models here. One of the usage models is people have said, well, wait a minute. One of the very easy things that I can do with the device detection is when somebody comes to my site, I can recognize the device and put that in my weblog so I can do mobile analytics. Very simple thing to do, and a very important thing to do, because you want to know who's coming to your site. You want to know why they came to your site. You want to see what they're using. Are the pages that they use on an iPhone different than they use on a Nokia N70? Why are those differences? Why are the flows different? Those are the things that you want to understand. Recently, we did a deal with Virtru. Those of you that know Virtru, they're the high-end Nokia phones that are made out of gold and silver and platinum and jewels and all that. Really expensive phones. But we've recently added Virtru phones into the Device Atlas database. Think about that from a demographic point of view. Boy, you really want to get at those guys from an advertising point of view, you know, because they have a lot of disposable income. If you can buy a jewel-encrusted cell phone that you're going to replace in 6 months, you know, or 18 months, whatever the replacement cycle is, you know, that's the person you want to sell something to because they have a lot of money. So that's part of what we're trying to do with device detection. The last usage model is the content adaptation usage model, which we'll talk a little bit about. What we're trying to do with Device Atlas, however, is we're trying to democratize it. When we started with Device Atlas, you had one of two choices for dealing with device detection and device attributes. If you were a big player, if you were a Microsoft, a Google, a Yahoo, an AOL, what you would do is you would spend literally millions of dollars buying phones, building your own database. And I'm not kidding, millions of dollars. I've spent time with these people and I've seen their labs. I've seen the number of people that they have around the world collecting device attributes. Or the other approach is you took a community approach and you would use something like Wurfel. What we've tried to do here is build a compromise between the two. With Wurfel, it's a great resource. However, there's no one to stand behind the quality. One of the things we heard about Wurfel, and the chief architect for Device Atlas was half of the Wurfel team, was that people said, we really want a company that would stand behind it. And we're that company that stands behind Device Atlas. But at the other end of the spectrum was, I could build a device database, but I need to make it affordable. So what we tried to do with Device Atlas is work on those two aspects. How do we build a device attribute that is affordable, yet at the same time of the highest quality that we're willing to stand behind? And we did that by taking a community approach. It actually has a lot of very wiki-like characteristics. We import data from multiple sources. So we get data directly from Nokia, design data from Nokia. We get design data from Sony Ericsson, from Motorola. We get test data from Vodafone Global's testing team in Düsseldorf. We get test data from the Argo Group team in the UK. We get test data from Volantis. We also do take Wurfel data in, and we get data from Mobisoft, which deals with lots of great video encoding data. So all of this data goes into the database. Well, one of the things that happens with that is we get a couple of interesting phenomena. One is we become, with each source that we add, bigger than the source we just added in. So one of the things, I've dealt with device databases for a long time, and one of the things I've always heard is everybody said, we have the biggest database on the planet. Well, I guarantee you we do have the biggest database on the planet, because we've included the biggest databases, all the claimed biggest databases on the planet, to build the biggest. And by the way, they were all kind of overlapping. The other thing that we hear is ours is of the highest quality. One of the things I will tell you is, I do know that ours is of the highest quality. And the reason why I know that is because we merge everybody's data together and we detect the conflicts. And it's through that conflict detection that we minimize the number of undetected errors in that. It's through that contact detection that we go back to Nokia and say, look, from a design specification, the Vodafone testing team disagrees. Why don't the two of you get together and work this out and figure out what the true and right value is? And it's through that that we actually improve quality.